Hello YouTube, and welcome back to part 2 of Seton Krosan Protector EDH deck. We will continue off where we left off with the druids of the deck. Next we have Kesa, which is she has been eroded to say legendary creature druid. All green creatures you control get +1/+1. Devoted druid, a way to make 2 green mana, or 2 green mana before it dies. Good way to help ramp us if we need it. Elvish Rejuvenator, help us get land into play. Chameleon Colossus, this is part of our win con. We can pump Chameleon Colossus, doubling its power and toughness so many times, and then just play something like Overrun or some way to give it trample to win the game. That is one of our win cons. Beast Whisperer, another way to draw cards with our creatures we cast. Boreal Druid, just a druid that taps for a colorless. Farhaven Elf, a way to find lands and put them in, lands and put them into play tapped. Llanowar Elves, just an elf that taps for a green. Elvish Harbinger, a way to get us any one of our elves that we need and put it on top of our library. Keeper of Progenitus. This card is, in my opinion, underrated. It makes all mountains, forests, and plains tap for an additional mana that it produced. So if we get this out, all our forests now produce 2 mana. Argothian Elder, a way to untap lands. Now this goes very well with Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, and Oran. That's why I said we can untap them. Elvish Mystic, another just tap for a green. Sea Guide Ash, when it dies, you go get 3 forests into play tapped. Really good, fun little card. Karametra's Acolyte. This card is basically Nykthos Shrine to Nyx on a stick. It has tap, add a green to your mana pool equal to your devotion to green. So almost the same thing as Nykthos, except only for green. Somberwald Sage, add 3 mana of 1 color to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells. Very good card, but very important that it only to cast creature spells. Kamal, Fist of Karosa. Very, very strong card and helps us win the game. This gives all creatures +3/+3 and trample. So if we have a bunch of mana laying around, pay 5 mana, give them all +3/+3 and trample. It's basically Lead the Stampede or Overrun on a stick. We have Werebear, just another creature that can tap to add green. Treefolk Harbinger. This one goes and gets us a Treefolk or a Forest and put it on top of our library. This one can grab Sea Guide Ash, and that's usually what you want to grab, unless you need the Forest. Seton Wood Readers. You can pay the kicker to draw 2 cards as it enters play. Easy way to help search out our win con. Next we have Yavimaya Elder. This can, when you sacrifice it, you draw a card, but before you draw a card, you go get 2 lands. So that is the important part, that you have to go get the 2 basic lands into play, or into hand before you draw the card. It is very, very important. Another card that untaps lands, Krosan Restorer. If you have the Threshold, which is 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you can untap up to 3 lands. Otherwise, it taps to untap 1 land. And our second to last druid is Nantuko Mentor. Tap and 3 mana. Tap, target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is its power. So, good way if we get one kind of big creature through, deals a lot of damage. Now, the last last little druid here is a very mean one. It is Gilt Leaf Archdruid. Now this card, when it comes down, it's gonna get a lot of hate immediately. So it may not seem that bad, but its second ability is pretty bad. First ability, whenever you play a druid, you may draw a card. Not that bad. Second one, tap 7 untapped druids you control, gain control of all lands target player controls. Basically, if we tap 7 druids, we take their lands. It's almost like Armageddon, but better because we don't destroy the lands, we just get them. And if there's one player that's really far ahead and you take their lands, it's not good. You will get hated out of the game for this, especially if you have the next card out, Paradox Engine, and you get to untap all non-land permanents you control whenever you cast a spell. That and Gilt Leaf Archdruid gets really nasty. Tapping, gaining control of all players' lands. Now this Paradox Engine is part of the combo. You do need this and the cat that returns a creature to your hand to go infinite, because then you make infinite mana, and you can also gain infinite life if you have Aetherflux Reservoir. Whenever you cast a spell, gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn. Pay 50 life, it deals 50 damage to target creature or player. Another way to win the game, but works very well with Paradox Engine. And the next artifacts aren't amazing, but we have Expedition Map, another way to go find our Nykthos or our Oran Reef. Throne of the God Pharaoh. This is an underrated card. It's been in a couple other decks of mine, but this deck is another deck where it really shines. It was in the Wart deck, which it's also very good in, but this one just is better. At the beginning of the end step, each opponent loses life equal to the number of tapped creatures you control. This is a deck all about tapping creatures, so I've seen this do up to 10 damage to a person in one turn. Next, we have Herald's Horn. We enters the battlefield, choose druids, obviously because it's druid tribal. Creature spells of the chosen type cost 1 less. At the beginning of upkeep, if the top card of our library is a druid, we can put it into hand after we reveal it. So it's a pretty good card, but sometimes it can be bad. Next, Emerald Medallion. Green spells cost 1 less. Very fun card. Very good. Elixir of Immortality keeps us from getting milled to death, because that is a very real possibility when we're drawing a bunch of cards. Now into our instants, sorceries, and enchantments. Beast Within is our 1 removal card. I do not have Krosan Grip or the enchantment that turns something into a land, but those will go in when I get them. Genesis Wave, very, very good card, very strong, and helps us get our win con. You pay X mana, reveal the top X cards, put every permanent into play with converted mana cost X or less, put all cards revealed this way on the bottom, or in that weren't put into the battlefield, into the graveyard. So very good way to get out a bunch of our creatures. Once we play over 6 mana, it hits everything. Overrun, creatures get +3/+3 trample. A way to give our creatures trample if we really need to. Harmonize, just a way to draw cards. Shamanic Revelation, another way to draw cards. This draws a card for each creature. If we have a creature with power 4 or greater, we gain 4 life for each creature that has the 4 or greater power. So most of the time we're not gaining a ton of life, but you can gain a lot. Wild Pair, very, very underestimated card. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, search your library for a creature card with the same converted power and toughness. So if you play a 1/1 you go get another 1/1 or a 0/2. Very good, very fun, very quick way to end games, too. Rishkar's expertise. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures. Then you may play a card with converted mana cost 5 or less without paying its mana cost. Another way to help us draw into our win con. Sky Shroud Claim, ways to search for lands. Harvest Season, another way to search for lands, but this counts tapped creatures, so you want to tap out when you cast that. Generally. Overwhelming Stampede, creatures get +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. They also gain trample, way to end games. Collective Unconscious, ways to draw cards for creatures. Very good card. Zendikar Resurgence doubles our mana that lands produce. We draw a card whenever we cast a creature spell. Very, very important to keep in mind that it's whenever we cast a creature spell and not enters play that we draw the card. So we can run out of cards to draw. Gaia's Touch, underrated enchantment again. You can play an additional land each of your turns, but the second land must be a basic forest. So most of the deck is basic forests. Very fun, very good card. Again, and then you can sack to add 2 green mana to your mana pool. Growing Rites of Itlamok. You get a creature into your hand from the top 4. At the beginning of end step, if you have 4 more creatures, transform them. It turns into Gaia's Cradle. We have Crop Rotation and Sylvan Scrying to search for our non-basic lands. We can put them into hand, then we play them. Last but not least, Kindred Summons. Choose Druids. Reveal the top cards of your library until you reveal X